The latest solo album from you is Divided We Fall. I dig the first track on this album. Great lyrical twist in there. And I believe you said that the album was totally finished in 2020, although some singles had come out first.
Yeah, I wrote a song and finished it, I released it because I can't wait. I just got to get it out there. If I had to wait to have 10 songs done, it would have taken me 6 or 7 years. And I don't want to do that, especially when you have a world now where you can release a single.
Yeah.
So kind of a cool thing. And on my website, you can go and you can click download the song and it's $1 or whatever. So, that made it cool. And then when I got 10 songs done, I could release them as an album. I press them up. Some people like CDs. I'm one of those people. So, I put them out. But yeah, from start to finish, 6 or 7 years. And it was in the fall. I mean, in the spring, when after this lockdown thing started, that I was able to finish mixing the last song. And then that song didn't sound, it sounded, I thought, better. The mix was better for that one than the previous 9. So I had to go back and remix the other 9 songs. And that took a lot of time. But I got it where I wanted it, and then I put it out. So that's how that process worked.
5th solo album, correct?
This is my 5th one, yeah.
The first solo album, the first anything is always the first. It's the hardest. Like if you say, I want to start a podcast, the whole obstacles of, hey, I have to have a name, I have to have a theme song, I have to have logo art, I have to do the back end. It's always hard. And then once you get it up and going, the second one's a lot easier. And then third and the fourth, it becomes a machine. Is it like that at all with solo albums where the first one was the hardest to do?
I think they're all hard to do, to be honest. The first one was songs that I think I probably had 6 songs or so, that maybe 5, that were left over from putting them forward for Firehouse, and they didn't make it on the album. So I just put them over in my little pile. And those were the 5 that I thought, okay, they're good enough for me to try to put out as a solo artist. And that I might be able to sing. So that's the big determining factor, is if I can sing it. So if once I had 5, I thought, well, if I write 5 more, then I'll have an album. So in my spare time, I wrote some more songs. And oddly enough, the last one I wrote on that album was a song called Wanderlust. And I didn't really like it when I started, but when I finished it, it was my favorite song on the album. And maybe not one of my stronger favorites, it was. And so I thought it'd be a good title for the album. So I put that one out. But, it hadn't gotten easier, because the second one, I thought, well, I want to put out an instrumental record. And instrumental music is really hard for me. And I'm so inspired by great instrumental artists like Steve Morse and Al Di Meola and Alan Holdsworth and Joe Satriani and Eric Johnson, and to try to do something that can be played as an instrumental guitar album, it's a tall order. I did one. I really started off with just needing like 3 or 4 songs so I could go out and demonstrate guitars that I was playing at the time and some of the amps I was playing at the time in a clinic format. And I thought, well, gosh, if I got 4 or 5 songs, all I need is 4 or 5 more, and I got an album. So I worked on them and finished that. And that was the second one. So it's a never ending learning process. It's something I really enjoy doing. And it's something I do when I am inspired and I have a song that I think is good enough for me to complete. I don't work on ideas that are okay. They've got to be something that make me feel really passionate about it.
A lot of my favorite bands kind of broke up or members left because of solo albums. And one of the things that we were talking about before was, you guys get along. The band never broke up. Firehouse never had that tragic period or anything like that. So was CJ 100% cool and supportive when you first said, hey, I think I'm going to do a solo album?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he totally cool. Everybody was, because I wasn't going to say, hey guys, let's take off for a couple of months so I go tour on my solo music.
Right.
We all had an agreement that you don't do that. We have to be available all the time to be able to play gigs because that's the mothership. So, it's a recording project, and CJ did one, and he's done released a couple of singles and stuff too. I'm sure he'll do more. And we all have lives outside of Firehouse. Some of them are musically involved, and some of them are, involved in other things. But there's time for everything, and as long as you make Firehouse your priority when it comes to touring, or if we're going to make another record, which I hope we do one day, then then all is cool.
Right. Like every band, this has probably been the longest period of your life without a gig from, age 17 or 18 forward. When exactly was your last gig? Was it February of last year?
Well, oddly enough, we've just done 3 gigs. We did one in Kentucky 2 weeks ago, and then we did 2 in Iowa last weekend. So that was the 19th of March, 20th of March. So the last gig, I think it was the 20th of March. Let me look at my calendar real quick to make sure. Yeah, 20th of March, Dubuque, Iowa. So that was my last. Now before that little cluster of 3 gigs that we had just within the last 2 weeks, we did 3 gigs the whole year back to March. One of them was a private event. One of them was in Wyoming at a great venue there, and one of them was here in Virginia where we were able to play, but it was a limited capacity. They could only allow, I think, half capacity or something like that. But it was great. I mean, it just felt like everybody had done their homework before they showed up, so it just felt like we had never stopped playing. And I think we appreciated it a whole hell of a lot more.
That was actually going to be my next question. So quasi name drop. Yesterday I was speaking to Joey Allen from Warrant, your old tour mate. And Joey was telling me that, the longest Warrant has gone without a gig, that kind of spiel. That's why I assumed it was the same for you, although some bands have been able to gig. And Joey said Warrant never rehearses. It's just they book gigs, and if they play 3 gigs a month, well, we're tight enough that we can do that. But this is going to be the first time in a long, long, long time that they're actually rehearsing to be able to do these gigs. And is that kind of the case for Firehouse, where you don't need to rehearse, you could just sound check and work it out there?
Well, the key, like I mentioned, is for everybody to do their homework. If I show up and I haven't done any homework, then I suck. I gotta be singing at least a week before we are going to do a gig, and I've got to be practicing those songs, because even though I've been playing them for 30 years, some of them, you forget. I mean, I've only got but so much RAM up here. And the RAM gets filled with all this other stuff that goes on. So you got to reintroduce those songs into your RAM so that you can put them out without thinking too hard and going to your hard drive. So I want my solos to be, I want to know what I'm doing before I get up there, and not go, oh, wait, how does this one go again? Or I don't want to be thinking, what's the next chord of this song? I forgot. Or what's my vocal part? So if you do all the homework and you go through the stuff a lot, it gets back to being a second nature thing where you can just be in the music instead of having to think so hard about what am I going to play and what's my part. That's the way it works for me anyway.
Does Firehouse rehearse vocals separately, like separate vocal rehearsals?
Well, we used to. Now we know our parts, and so everybody knows what they've got to do. But we'll go into a rehearsal place and go over song. We'll change the songs a little bit. We try not to do it at sound check, because honestly, we don't get very long sound checks a lot of times.
Right.
And also, if there's a band that's going on, that's wanting to get their sound check after us, we don't want to take away their sound check time. It's pretty precious time, especially if something goes wrong for that band. And we've been in that situation before where the headliner is up there going through songs and rehearsing, and it's like 2 hours, and then the doors open and they go, okay, the door's open. All right, Firehouse, go ahead and set up your stuff. We don't want to be that band.
Yes, that's the vibe of things I was asking you out before and things I've read. Firehouse has always been nice. I can't find any bad stories of, and then the Firehouse guys stormed off. Was it an ego check thing early on, or where does it come from that you guys have always been pleasant and there's no scandals?
Well, I think it was the way we were all raised, to be honest with you. I think we had good parents, and they gave us good values and principles, morals, and how to treat other people, and how to act. And I think that's been a benefit for us, because we in situations, let's say it's um, a committee that's deciding on who the bands are going to be that they want for their festival.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our reputation is that we get along with the organizers. We aren't a bunch of prima donnas, and we go out and we do our best to sound our best. And you can do the opposite of all that stuff and be the greatest band in the world, but really you're working with people. And it's not really, when people think, who do I want to work with? It's a tie between this band and this band, and this band is a bunch of jerks. This band wins every time. So that's my advice to people who are thinking about getting into this, is it's just be nice. It isn't that hard to do. Try to, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And don't be a guy that, is going to have a fit because, you didn't get your whatever you demand on your rider or whatever. Water, towels are what you need. If you got an agreement and there's a contract signed where you're supposed to get all this other stuff, that's a different issue. But if you're trying to break into this, you don't want to be the band that has, oh, here's their rider, and this is all the things they want. They're not going to hire you.
Yeah, I remember coming from a music industry background, sending the rider one time to a festival promoter for another hard rock band in Norway. And the promoter was livid. He goes like, this is not an eating contest. You don't need all these things. But out of curiosity, what is on your rider besides the water and towels?
Well, you hire us and you'll find out.
Good answer.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, we have some beer on there. We have some, we have some tequila on there for after the show. And, but that's, we're at a level now, not that we're, really high maintenance or anything, but we don't surprise the promoters with our rider at the last minute. It's part of the contract. So if you were to hire us, we want something to eat that's good and healthy. And we want, a couple of the crew guys like to drink some sodas, but we don't get a case of soda. And I don't know, I don't eat that much stuff on the rider anyway. I'll drink a beer, and if we're having a cheers, I'll have a shot of tequila or whatever. But it's we're pretty tame in terms of the blowing out the party before, during, and after the show. It's because most of our shows are followed by another show.
Mm-hmm.
And when you play on a Friday night and you got to get up Saturday morning at 3 a.m. to drive the van back to the airport to catch the 6 a.m. flight to fly to somewhere to then lay over, to then fly to your final destination, to then hop in another van to drive 2 hours to wherever the gig is, and then set up, sound check, get a shower, maybe get something to eat, and then play again. You can't sound good by partying all night. And so we learned that early on, that there's a time to do it and there's a time not to do it. And most of the time out on the road, there isn't enough time to do it.
Yeah, I mentioned Warrant before, and you guys were part of what was maybe the last great arena rock tour of the Warrant Firehouse Trickster Tour, which was a great pay-per-view, which you and some of the people from the tour talked about on a recent Chris Jericho podcast, which was a great episode. And you said, I believe on there, that you didn't get tour support for that tour. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, the record company never gave us tour support. We had to manage our money, and we had to go out there and do it on our own. I don't think that was really unusual at that point in the genre, the life of that genre with record companies. At the end of our wave that we snuck in on of melodic hard rock, a lot of bands weren't getting any tour support. And so we went out and we rented the cheapest bus we could find, and we scaled back everything, and we went out and did it, and made it work so that we, the money that we went into debt, but we got money from things like if there was any money left over in the recording fund, if there was any more money left over with the publishing grants or something like that, that's how we funded it. They didn't say, hey, here's $5,000 a week for tour support. Go have fun, guys. Sell some records. There was none of that.
Right. So you had a very different approach to the average approach of get the advance. Then you get the royalty statement and go, oh, negative, unrecouped.
Well, look at all the money that we owe. And, but we still owed a lot of money. I mean, we were unrecouped forever. And they kept saying, hey, we're going to shoot this video. We're like, okay, great. We got to pay it all back. Oh yeah. So the thing that people don't realize is that if your video costs you $100,000, you don't sell $100,000 worth of records to pay that back. To pay it back, you recoup from your royalty rate. Right. So if royalty rate is 10%, which is a little less than what we had when you net it all out.
Yeah.
If you have $100,000 video, you sell $1 million worth of records that the record company brings in to pay back that $100,000. So it's really stacked in the record company's favor to do all this promotional stuff because you're paying it back.
Yes.
Your royalty rate. So the other thing is that it's a recoupable loan. It's a non-returnable loan. If you don't pay it back, they can drop you, but then you don't owe them anything. So that's the good side of it for an artist, and that's their leverage in saying that's how we do it here. It's non-returnable, recoupable loan.
Yes. So where I'm going with that, rather than putting everybody to sleep and giving them an early slumber, is Firehouse. One of the things we talked about before did have a top 20 single on the third album. So you lived past the quote unquote hair metal thing. You're an 80s band who didn't have its hits until 90, 91.
Yeah.
Which kind of counteracts a lot of the logic and the stereotypes and all that. So you had a hit on the third album, unlike a lot of your peers. It kept going. You had all the success we talked about in Asia. The hits kept coming. But you evolved into becoming what I call weekend warriors. Like, yeah, you were on the Rock Never Stops tour and you did some great package tours, but it eventually became a lifestyle of gig in this city on Friday, gig in this city on Saturday, fly home. When exactly did it become primarily a weekend warrior thing?
Well, we learned that from Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh.
We did some gigs with them, and I sat down with Buck Dharma. We were in customs in Canada, getting over the border, and we were stuck there for 4 hours because one of the guys on their crew had some problem or something. So I was sitting next to Buck Dharma because I'm like, if I can sit next to anybody, I want to sit next to Buck because he's, what a great guitar player. And he was so cool. He was so generous with his knowledge and sharing information. And he said, that's what they do. And they'd been doing it for a couple of years. He said, people don't go out as much on the weekdays when they get to be older because they got kids and they got jobs. And they can't get up real early to go to work after a night out on the town. And so he said, you know, that's what they'd been doing for a long time. And I thought, well, that's really great. So I talked to the other guys, and we had been out on the bus driving around aimlessly, calling the agent, hey, get us a gig. We need more gigs. We need more gigs. And we were getting good gigs on the weekends. And then on the weekdays, we were getting these fill-in dates.
Yeah.
And the money isn't as good on a fill-in date, and neither is your attendance.
Right.
So we learned quickly that we need to send the bus back to Florida and start doing fly dates on the weekends only. And it worked out a lot better for us, because on the weekends we had great attendance, and in the weekdays we were at home with our families or working on music. So it was made a lot more sense.
The aforementioned Joey Allen was telling me how, you know, his existence is basically day job, you know, for the 40 hours. And yes, he's still in the music industry. And then the weekend flyouts and all that, which basically turns into 80-hour weeks. So it might seem to the outsider, hey, this is a part-time thing. But in your case, as well as somebody who's helping bands with demos and tracking solos and putting things together, you're an 80-hour-a-week guy that people don't realize is an 80-hour-a-week guy.
It is. And, you know, the hardest part is the travel, for sure. You know, granted, you may be sitting on a plane, but I can tell you that for sitting on a plane like this for that many hours,
yeah,
you come off kind of beaten up, especially if you're going overseas. We do some long flights going over there. The part that it was really hard about it is that Delta Airlines doesn't have a rock and roll flight schedule. All the flights that work where we can get in on time, they all leave at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And so you got to get up so early. And I was talking to you earlier. I mean, I go to bed so late that I don't want to get up early. And my body doesn't want to get up early. So it's that's the toughest thing, is you don't get any sleep, and it can your immune system can go down. It can be tough on you.
Yeah. Well, hey, my words, not yours. You still sound great. You still look great. You're still playing at a top level. So keep up whatever you're doing on that end.
Yeah,
time for 3 quick questions, and then you're a free man, Bill.
Man, take all the questions you want, because the first half we were kind of it was my internet was messed up. And here's the cable, and maybe it's this.
Oh yeah,
it's adapter. You know, that's the problem. But there's the Cat 5 cable, and so it should help me troubleshoot this.
So if I hear you correctly, Bill is looking for a cable endorsement.
I got one, but this isn't one of his cables. We can get one of his Cat 5 cables.
Had it been one of his cables, none of, you know, oh, well.
That's right.
One thing I'm curious about, because as an outsider, even though I'm in the music business, I'm not there in the rehearsal room. I'm not there on the calls with management or the agent and all that. But what it looks like to me is you sold millions of records. You had hits. The hits are still playing on the radio in some form, in different formats. They still want you to do the gigs around the world. They still want new Firehouse music. But is there anything that you haven't yet gotten accomplished that you're still hoping might happen one day?
I want to just continue those things that you mentioned for a lot longer. I want to put out another album that people love and that people get to hear. There's so much out there that nobody gets to hear because there's so much out there.
Yeah.
You know, I want to play more gigs, more big gigs. I want to walk off stage and go, wow, I hit every note right. That's one of the things I want to do. I sang every note well. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to put out a solo record that people can hear me, the other sides of me musically. I love Firehouse, and that allows me to do a lot of that. But the solo stuff allows me to do other stuff that doesn't really fit Firehouse. And I like a lot of stuff. So that's it. And then, I guess the one thing is to just be recognized by the other people in the industry. And not that I'm big on award shows, because I'm not real happy with the way that they're going right now. But I think one of the things I would love to have accomplished is to win a Grammy, and because that's the industry saying, yeah. But I don't know. Those are the big far fetched dreams. But it keeps you going. It keeps me working, and that's keeps me off the street. So that's what it's all about.
That 1991 American Music Award means that you're forever award-winning Bill.
Well, I appreciate it, and that's the fans that vote for that one. So that meant a whole lot. It would be great if the industry would give us the nod, but don't expect that, because I think the industry is it's a very tough group of people that are on the, I don't know. The award shows are difficult. Back then,
it's political. I get it.
Yeah, but so that's one thing. That's one goal. One thing I'd love to have happen is to win something like that.
What I would recommend is one day you get a list of all the categories and you see which category has the least potential entrance to the whole thing. So you find that best engineering on an acoustic blues album won, and then you chase that, and then you hire that publicist for $1,500 that works all the people and goes, hey, have you thought about voting for this person?
Yeah, that's a good angle. And you mentioned acoustic blues. I was thinking the other day, I would love to put out a blues album that's real authentic blues stuff, because I was influenced by a lot of those cats, and a lot of the cats that influenced the next generation of blues rock kind of guys. So maybe one day I'll do something like that. I got a lot of stuff I want to do. It's just got to find the time.
Best spoken word engineering, non-classical. I will find that category for you. Maybe that's something to put out on your social media. What's the best category for me to win a Grammy in? And then you're a Grammy Award winner. But aside from music, do you have a TV recommendation you could pass along to somebody who needs a new show to start?
Oh, I go back. I like comedy, and I go back to listening to Crank Yankers. I'm a big Crank Yankers fan. Also, trying to think of what else. Okay, well, there's a show called Trip Tank. It's a adult comedy animation show. I've been watching that a little bit. I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, I want it to be something that's going to make me laugh. And so that's very risque. Might be the word. It's a lot of dirty stuff and a lot of kind of violence, but it's done in a funny way. So, but going back to Crank Yankers, I mean, it just, what a great idea for a TV show, in getting people on prank phone calls and then reenacting it with puppets. I just think that's brilliant. And I like anything comedy that has to do with pranks. And so I love that stuff. I'm trying to think of another more serious one but I was watching Ozark. I'm looking for another episode of that. I thought that was a really good show. Or another series, rather. Hopefully they'll come out with another series. I don't know.
If you're a Crank Yankers fan, does that mean you go back to being a Jerky Boys fan?
Oh yeah, I was huge into the Jerky Boys, and then I went on a wild goose chase of finding all these other tapes of prank phone calls. Roy Mercer was another guy who did a lot, and but the Jerky Boys were huge, and that first Jerky Boys record went gold.
Oh yeah.
The recording costs were about what the cost of a cassette tape. So
it was a bootleg cassette tape, so there wasn't even any costs.
Yeah. And so they recouped pretty quickly.
I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny Brennan from the Jerky Boys was a fan of yours, because they were managed by Marshall Burrell. So he Yeah, that came up in my interview with him when I asked him a Van Halen question. He said, "Oh, I got to speak to Eddie on the phone because Marshall Burrow was our manager at the time, and blah 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 blah." And he seems to be into hard rock, late '80s, early '90s predominantly. So you never know who's in the Mutual Appreciation Society.
So is that the guy who did, Saul Rosenberg with my glasses?
Frank Rizzo,
Frank Rizzo.
Jack
Yeah.
Tours.
Oh, so good. It's just really lit my life up in 1990 on the tour bus. Well, it actually came out maybe 88, 89, but I could quote all that stuff. But I was listening to it. I just love it.
What cracks me up about how universal the Jerky Boys was is the first Radiohead album is named after a Jerky Boys prank call. It's called Pablo Honey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, people who just listen to rock music would be like, "Oh, Firehouse, they've never heard of Radiohead." Like, you guys are listening to the same exact things that they are. Very serious Radiohead, listening to Kissel or Jack Tours or whatever.
Yeah, or the Egyptian Magician.
Exactly. Garbage. Exactly. Well, my last question, we'll tape a part 2 where we talk specifically about the Jerky Boys and touch tone terrorists. But in the meantime, Bill, any last words for the kids?
Well, thank you. Thank you for making it so that I can still play music for a living. It's been a tough year, but you guys have kept me going by supporting my solo music and by supporting Firehouse. I've been doing stage it shows where I break out the acoustic guitar and I sing songs, either cover tunes or songs from my 5 solo records. And I plan on doing more. So if you get a chance, please go to my website. It's leverty.com. Join my mailing list and I'll send you a notice when I got another stage it show. It's fun. You just log in and then I'm in your living room and we're hanging and making some music. So that's what I've been doing lately to get through this. And I appreciate all the support from all you guys out there.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next one of those. And more importantly, the next New York live gig, New Jersey live gig, when things get normal again. So thank you. Keep it up, etc. Bill.
Thank you, Darren.
Paltrocast.